Okay, so we're back with an answer writing video this time. So, firstly, we're talking about how to write answers for IGNOU specifically. Okay, for the IGNOU University. Now, several universities have their different kinds of answer evaluation methods. So, different kinds of methods work with them. Like DU has different evaluation, MDU has different, IGNOU has different. Oh yeah, I can tell you about the MDU evaluation as well. In MDU evaluation, I don't think it really matters how you write the answer. I mean, yeah, I think that does matter actually. My friends kept telling me that it doesn't matter how you write the answer in this university, you just need to fill up a lot of pages. But I always fill up the least pages and I get higher marks than all of them. So I'm guessing that it doesn't work like how they were telling me. Anyways, when we're talking about this, we're talking about IGNOU. So IGNOU has some specific standards while checking your examinations. Okay, that's why people are always saying that the examinations are so tough, answer writing is so hard, answer evaluation is so strict. Okay, it's not like that. And why I'm the right person to tell you how to write an answers, I'll tell you why. Because I literally finished my books in a single day and gave the exam the next day, even when I hadn't started the book at all. Like I hadn't read a single page from the book, and I started it today and I finished it by next day's evening, and then in the evening I had to go and give that exam, and I passed it, and I got about 70% in my English honors. So despite hurrying up with all the syllabus and despite finishing it in such a hurry, like literally going through the books in a single day, I still managed. I think 70% is good enough. So I'll tell you how to write your answers. So there are different ways of writing answers, just like there are different ways of writing novels, writing short stories. Same way there are different ways of writing answers. But some things that should be common in your answers, I'm not saying must be common, but should be common, are these three: good English. And by good English, I do not mean the vocabulary. By good English, I mean that you should appear to be fluent in the language. You should appear that you are comfortable, you are flexible with the language. It's not like you can barely form words, or it takes a lot of effort from you to form right sentences and to understand what it means and to make sense of your sentences. It should appear that you're comfortable with the language. The second thing is communication. Now communication is the key, that's what they say, and communication is key here as well. So your communication should be strong. You should be able to convey your message easily to the examiner. It should not be too complex, it should not be too messy, too hodgepodge. It should be easy to understand. Like the message should be easy to read, it should be easy to feel what you're trying to convey to him. And third is innovation, like they say, for extra marks. So innovation here is for extra marks: good English and communication, and then I'll tell you how to write the answer. Those things would get you good grades, but if you want extra grades, then you should be innovative. And what do I mean by innovative? Write in your own style. Don't write in that bogus copied style that you've been writing from class 9th or 10th for CBSE boards. This is not CBSE board. Universities are not board exams, okay? So you need to be inventive. You need to write creatively, or write in a way that makes the examiner feel like, yeah, I'm reading something good, I'm reading something worth reading. It's not like another messy copy and tick tick tick. No, I want to read this, I want to see what this child has written, he's done it in a good way. So now I'll tell you how you can write the exam, what should be the format. The format is actually pretty simple and it's very evident. It's right in front of your eyes all the time. This is the format, my friends. This. Yes, every IGNOU book, every chapter has the format pre-written in it. And here they are. So what does they say? What does the structure look like? The structure starts with objectives, then the introduction, and then in after the introduction there are the main content of the chapter, and then in the end there is let us sum up. Let us sum up means conclusion basically. And every answer in any examination, even if you're giving a UPSC examination, this method would help you get all the marks that you need. This is literally almost one of the most universally followed methods for any kind of answer writing. You first start with objectives, and by objectives I don't mean you need to literally write first, like you have to literally write objectives and then you will start writing what you will put into objectives and into introduction. No, 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 you don't write these. You don't write objectives and you don't write introduction and then you don't write, okay, now I'm starting. You just started, but it should appear that you are creating a kind of difference, as if, like, this is one section of your answer writing, and then this is another section, and then this is another section. Even though these sections are joined, even though these sections are all combined, but they should appear to be different while reading the answer. That's the key. So first you would start with objectives, and let us pick a dummy or an example answer, an example question first, maybe. Okay, we have ample amount of questions here. You can pick up any of them. Like theme of social responsibility, these can all come as questions themselves. So like they can ask, what was the theme of social responsibility in the chapter, in the novel? What was the problem of Chris' marriage? Or or expound on idealism as theme. How was the father-son relationship in the novel? How was the mother-son relationship in the novel? So you can basically pick up any of these as questions, and you can even self-practice them, and that's even better, right? So we'll pick up the father-son relationship as our question. So when starting with this question, let's say they ask us a question, analyze the father-son relationship in the novel. So how would you start it? First, you would start with your, you actually don't need to write objectives in answer writing. You can just directly start with introductions. So what would be your introduction? Introduction is basically, you don't have to introduce every character, but you need to give a brief overview of the situation. You can just write some kind of context, some kind of background context, or you can introduce the characters as well a bit, but not too much, just a bit. You can introduce the situation that they're in, like, it's basically the same as context. So you just need to give a brief context so the person can understand what we're talking about, even though he already knows all of it. I know, since he must have already read the novel, but still. Okay, so while writing the introduction, you can add up a few things. Like, you can start it with the in this question specifically, you can say that there are several themes within the novel, and one of the major themes is the father-son relationship. It goes throughout the novel, and it influences the characters highly, and it is very central to the novel. You can give just some kind of basic, overview, some kind of only, yeah, like just in introduction, right? Just 3 to 4 lines max. And you can write anything related to the novel, but closely related with the question. Anything from the novel, like, write anything from the novel, but closely related to the question. Okay, here I'm writing related to question. Okay, and once you've finished your introduction, now you can start. And when we're starting, so here it is, our main matter. So here it is, the matter. So when you're starting, what would you start with? You would like to start slow. Don't directly start with, okay, this is the most important theme in the novel. The father-son relations are very sour, and his dad killed all those people, and that's why Chris is angry and all that. No, 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 no. Start slowly. Start like, Chris and his father has a strained relationship, and first give some kind of background. And say what would be even better is, don't directly start with that they have a strained relationship, even though it sometimes help. I think that when you write the main point in the very start and then go on about explaining it, like I said, there are different styles of writing. So what you can do is, you can either directly address the main issue, like they had a strain. So they were asked what kind of relationship it's, and the answer would be, in one word, it would be they have a strained relationship or they have a bad relationship. So you can directly write the answer that they have a strained relationship, and then go about explaining it in 2 or 3 pages how they have a strained relationship. Or you can just integrate the main part within the answer as well, so the reader eventually understands what kind of relationship they had, even without exactly reading that particular word. And in here we would start like this. First, it would be even better if we're talking about two characters. Since there are different kinds of questions and they often form different kinds of answers. and I can't really cover all of them, but I will if you have any particular kind of question in mind. But in this case, we are talking about two characters, not a situation, not an event, but two characters. So we're talking about the relationship between two people or two characters in a novel. So how would you start about it? So first, define the first character. Define, give some context, you can call it anything. And then the second character, same goes with the second character. Define or context. And how would you define, what would be the context? It's like this, that first tell some background story about the first character. Like let's say the first character is Chris. The second character is his dad. I don't even remember what his name was. I haven't read it in like 2 years, maybe two. No, no, 2, 3 or 4 years. 4 years. I guess. Okay, so the second character was Joe Keller. So now you can give some background information about Chris Keller first, and that background information would be Chris. This auto lock sucks, and I would highly advise you never buy nothing phones. They'll really suck. So first, give some background information about Chris. Like Chris has an army background, or he went to serve in the World War, and he saw different kinds of things there, which changed his purview of the world. He feels guilty. Like you can write a lot of things. I'm just writing some examples here. Guilty, participated in war, and idealistic. His main feature, obviously, he's an idealistic, and what do you call good people? I don't know if we should call him a good Samaritan since he hasn't exactly done anything good. And then there's another thing, there's actually two kinds of guilt for Chris. Chris has two kinds of guilt. And why I'm telling you to give this background, to give this context at first, because in IGNOU they specify a particular kind number of pages. They don't exactly specify pages, but they specify words which eventually uh, turn into pages. So like they have told you that write 700, 800 words, and they would correspond to some 5 or 6 pages at least, right? Depending on how many number of words you write in a particular page, but eventually they're going to correspond into a number of pages, and those number of pages are too much. So that's why I'm telling you to write with this particular method. So in this one, like in this, you're talking about Chris. You first cover this part, then you cover this part, then you cover this part. You've already made 3 points, and you're covering these parts in details. So you've easily covered at least about a page on Chris himself, only on Chris. Now the second page would be on his father. So you've already covered 2 pages, and you haven't even written the main context yet. You've just given background information about the characters, and you've already finished 2 pages. So first mark out some points that you can write about. If you have a rough side, mark those points in the rough page. This is one of the best methods, I'd say, marking out points at first and then defining those points. Even if you directly write the points within the answer itself, there's no issue. In fact, I think it would even be better. But it depends on you. If you want to write the points and then exactly define each of them, that's up to you. So first, there are two kinds of guilt in Chris's mind. First is the guilt from the war. He thinks that he is living a life that he wasn't supposed to live. He feels that he was supposed to die in the war, as his comrades died. All of them died to save the country, and he feels guilty for being alive. The second thing he feels guilty for is marrying his brother's fiance. Okay, this is also there's a little guilt in his mind about this as well. That Anna, I think her name was Anna, if I'm not wrong. She was his brother. I don't even remember his brother's name, man. She was his brother's fiance, and they were in love. But eventually, Chris and she fell in love, and now he's about to marry her. He's about to propose to her. So there is these two kinds of guilt in his mind. Now expound. This I can't help you with. You have to do it on your own. You have to add explanations, you have to add information on your own. I can't help you with it. I can only tell you how to write that information. So now you're going to expound a bit on this section, on the war guilt. 3 or 4 lines should be enough. Then expound on this one, the second guilt. three or four lines here as well. Okay, then expound about the war. Okay, now we've already covered war, but you can, take another point of view in this. You can add some out of syllabus lines as well. That, I mean, this is actually, I think this is one of the best parts. Writing out of syllabus sentences, out of syllabus information is actually one of the most detail rich parts. It makes your answer detailed, and it makes it look like you know what you're writing about. You're actually engrossed in writing it. You've thought it out. You haven't just wrote, memorized it. You've understood it. You've conceptualized it, and now you're trying to just present it on a paper. So make it rich in details. Real life details works the best. Okay, so we'll talk about war, and this is one of the best times to write about war. I'm sorry to say that, but that's true. So just talk a bit about war, how wars are currently happening in the country. This can You can easily add at least 3 to 4 lines only on the current context, how currently the wars are affecting, and then add 3 or 4 lines how war affected him at that time, how his psychological purview changed. Okay, and you can even pick up the same lines from here, 1 or 2 lines. You can just add it here as well, it doesn't matter. And then after that, and then you can add in some cheeky lines like he left the war but the war never left him, something like that. And you'll easily be able to add 8 to 9 or 9 to 10 lines in here. Okay, I've actually separated everything into small sections so you are able to understand them easily. 3 to 4 lines on current context, okay, like current situation. 3 to 4 lines again on war, and out of which 1 to 2 lines you can directly pick from the previous one. So it will form your 8 to 10 lines, something like that. And then we have our biggest point, idealistic. He was an idealistic, right? And then you can add in some lines from the novel itself. You can explain how the hell he was idealistic, why he was idealistic, how did he appear to be idealistic. And then again we're going back to these very things. This is how it works. It works kind of like a loop, and it's completes your answers itself. It's like a self-fulfilling answer. You keep repeating on the previous lines, but you repeat them in a newer context, in a different context. How he was idealistic? He was idealistic because he was guilty about war, and he was idealistic because he felt guilty for living. He was idealistic because he thought that people were good. There are some lines from the novel where he sees that after the war ended and Chris came back home, he felt very disappointed about the kind of people that he had been fighting for, that his comrades gave his life for. So he was kind of disappointed as well. So this also explains how he was an idealistic. And apart from that, you can also mention some other things. You can add in small hints like when Chris and his father Job has an altercation, has an argument. It clearly appears that Chris has an idealistic vision in contrast to his father. You don't need to exactly explain the argument. You don't need to write in detail about the argument. Just a few hints. Just keep it to a few hints, because we're going to need that argument, those altercations later in the main matter. So we'll just give a few hints that even during the arguments, it appears to be, it seems like Chris is an idealistic person from the way he speaks, from the way he talks, from the way he disagrees with his father. You don't need to give exactly how or on what he disagrees. You just need to say that he disagrees, and that gives us an idea, or that gives us an assumption that Chris is an idealistic person. That's it. Okay. So idealism should again cover this is your one of the main points. So it should again cover 4 to 5 lines. And believe me, in all of these, at least 4 or 5 lines would be useless and hodgepodge and extra information, but that makes up for the matter because you have to write a lot. Okay, so this was only Chris. Now we go on to Joe Keller. Now you're going to define Joe Keller, right? Mark out the traits of Joe Keller. What were the again, he was also guilty, like father, like son, guilty. Then again, you can add the same concept. See, You can again add war, because war affected not just Chris but his father Joe as well. Everyone takes part in the war, everyone is affected by war, and so you can write about war on anyone and everyone. So war. And then third is materialistic. While Chris was idealistic, his father was materialistic. And again then he has, I mean, oh my, this is quite a coincidence. Even Joe Keller has two different kinds of guilt. What is the first kind of guilt? Guilt for, uh, guilt for, I think that should be the second point. The first point, the guilt towards his friend whom he wrongfully imprisoned or got wrongfully imprisoned. So, first is guilt towards friend. What was his friend's name? I really didn't read this novel or this chapter before making this video, so I'm short on information. So, toward his friend whom he got sent into the jail, and second is towards the soldiers. This guilt comes very late, and this was an actual guilt. That's why he shot himself, because this was an actual guilt. So he also has two kinds of guilt. First is the guilt towards his friend, the second is the guilt towards the soldier. And again, since we're only giving the context, you don't need to write too much information, just give small hints. This first section works only on hints. No extra information, no detailed information, unless you're talking about real world, real life situations, or comparing two situations. One is from real life only, then add details. Add details only where you are sure of it, only where you know too much about it. Otherwise your details would be used already and you wouldn't have much to write about by the end of the answer. Then, and if you're trying to give hints, how do you go about giving hints without actually writing the information? So I'll give you an example. I write a small section on it myself and then you see how we do it. Okay, so this is an example. I've written a few lines on this section, on the section of guilt towards friend. So he felt guilty towards his friend Steve Deaver. He fails to ever get over this guilt because he believes that. Wait, what did I do? Okay, it's all right. Because he believes that he had betrayed his long-time family friend for saving himself, and it is on his sacrifice (bracket as of many others) that his comfortable, reputable, and stable life is based. So what did I do in these three, four lines? I didn't do anything. I didn't explain anything. I didn't give any context or anything. I just gave a kind of general situation. I just explained the general situation. Okay, he felt guilty. We're already writing about guilty, so this is the important one here. He felt guilty towards whom? Towards his friend. We have explained our intention, that we are trying to tell the reader that he had a feeling of guilt. And if he had a feeling of guilt, what would be your next question? Guilt about what? Guilt about whom? We are telling him guilt towards his friend. He's Steve Deaver. And now his question would be, what kind of guilt? Guilt about what? What did he do? So we're kind of explaining it generally, like let's say that somebody shot a person, another person stabbed the person, and a third person, let's say, slapped the person. But in all cases, if you want to generalize the situation, you can simply say that one person harmed the other person, even though the degree of harm is exponential in some of them, right? Like you can't compare getting shot to getting a slap, right? But in both the cases, you can simply say that one person or person A harmed person B. So this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to generalize the situation. We're not going into details. We're not exactly explaining what the thing is. We're just trying to generalize it and uh, like create a big hole, a WHOLE hole. He fails to ever get over this guilt. Now we're telling that he feels guilty and he couldn't get over it. This is some kind of extra information which is actually useless, but since you have to fill up the pages, it becomes meaningful. Because he believes that he had betrayed his long time family friend. Now, of course, this is very obvious. Okay, I mean, this is an obvious thing that obviously he feels guilty because he must have betrayed his friend. I mean, why else would he feel guilty, right? This is something that everyone would be able to guess, but still we've written it, and this is not wrong, and this does count as content. Content. I know this has got me so confused, since these words were used so uh, frequently. Family friend for saving himself, and it is on his sacrifice, as of many others, that his comfortable, reputable, and stable life is based. Now we've added another point. What is the third point? That he betrayed his for saving himself. Okay, this is important. Now we've added a third point. This is a hint. These are hints. So first hint is your guilty. He feels guilty. Towards whom? Towards his friend. This is your second hint. Your third hint would be he believes that he had betrayed his long time. This is your third hint, that he had betrayed his friend. He doesn't feel guilty because of something. And I mean, even between friends there can be several reasons why one feels guilty. Maybe he didn't come somewhere on time, or maybe he didn't go to his wedding, or something like that. But when you use the word betrayed feels kind of more deep, more dense. Betrayed feels something more physical, either, or even on an intellectual or mental level it feels something big. It gives a kind of feeling that something big happened. Betrayed. It's not like he didn't attend the wedding and so his friend was angry and he felt guilty. This is not that kind of guilt. This is a serious kind of guilt. And then we've added a small extra information, which is what? That he was a long time family friend. This adds matter to your content. Okay, this lengthens your content, and what we need to do is we just need to lengthen the content and still add in useful information. In any of the questions from IGNOU, I think the important is information is just 25 to 30%. In fact, in any of the long answers, the maximum information, important information, is 25 to 30%. Rest 70%, near about, I'm saying rest near about 70 to 75% is just extra information, just context, background, and extra words that need to be used with a sentence to make sense out of it. So that's why these are your hints. Then third hint is betrayed, fourth hint is saving himself, that he saved himself, and it is on his sacrifice. This is a fifth one is sacrifice. Now sacrifice finally completes it. Sacrifice pairs with betrayed. Okay, betrayed gave us a kind of feeling that something big had happened, and sacrifice finally gives us a feeling that something really big happened. The guy actually had to sacrifice himself. It means he either died or he is in a kind of situation where he can't come out of. So sacrifice finally completes it. Sacrifice makes it seem like it was something huge, something that cannot be forgiven. That his comfortable, reputable, and stable life is based. Okay, now you notice this thing, that I could have simply written that his comfortable life is based on. Okay, I didn't need to add these two more words, reputable and stable, but we often add these words in long answers to make it more lengthy. Even though we could have done it without these words, but when you're writing a novel answer, when you're writing a literature answer, you need to add these words. You need to make it lengthy and more appealing. This makes it more appealing. Okay, appealing, ornamental is the main thing here. So I just gave you an example of how you can just give in small hints and write your matter. So this was just for one part, one sections, one little part towards friend. In the same way you're going to write about towards the soldier, then you're going to write on war, then you're going to write on how he was materialistic. And once you've done that, I'm assuming you would have easily finished about 2 to 3 pages in this itself, including the introduction part as well. You can easily cover 2 to 3 pages, or even 4 pages. Maybe not 4 pages, but again then one another important thing I should tell you as to how many pages you should cover. I wouldn't specify for you how many pages you should cover, because that would give you kind of limitation, that this much pages is enough, I don't need to write more, even though if you're able to write more, because it depends on how much information you have and how much of it you can recall. I couldn't recall a lot of information, so I mainly did it with different kinds of methods. I use different methods to make my little information appear too much. uh, but if you have too much information, if your memory is good, if you're able to recall properly, if you have studied from from the start of the year, then you can write as many pages as you want. But for me, I have standard formula for writing pages. I take one page to be for roughly 5 marks. So if when there are 20 marks question, now 20 marks question can't actually adjust to the 5 marks criteria. But if there's a 5 marks question, then you will write one page and think it's more than enough. But if there's a 10 marks question, you might think, okay, I'll write 2.5 pages. If there's a 15 marks question, you might think, okay, I'll need to write 4 pages, something like that. But I mostly went with this criteria. So if there was a 20 marks question, I would minimum, I would, although set it at minimum, I would write at least 4 pages, but I would stretch it to 5 and maximum 6 pages. That's it. I did not do more than 6 pages at all, ever, in a 20 marks question. Like ever. In my 3 years, I did not write more than 6 pages ever for a 20 marks question. And this is more than enough, believe me, because IGNOU gives you a particular set of sheets, particular pages in a sheet. There are, I think, 26 or 25 pages. So assuming that there are 4 questions for 20 marks, let's say that there are 4 questions and each question is of 20 marks, and let's say that you wrote a minimum of 6 pages for 120 marks question. How many does that make it? It makes it 24 pages only for the 20 marks questions, and there are another 20 marks left. So how would you adjust those 20 marks in only 2 pages? That's not possible, right? So IGNOU already gives you specific limit as to how many pages you should write per answer, and the safe limit, I would say, would be around 5 pages for a 20 marks question. No need to write anything more than that, because then your sheet would be finished. You wouldn't have space for writing the other questions, and they do not give you extra sheet. And since we've already covered this, you can try to make it a bit short. You don't need to actually cover 3 or 4 pages within itself. Just cover 2 pages. Let's say 1 page for this character 1, 1 page for this character 2, or make it 3 pages at max. 3 if you're writing a 5 marks, if you're writing it in 5 pages, then make it 3 to 3.5 pages for these 2 sections, and then finally start with your main material. Then you're going to start with the main content in your answer. And again, I'm telling you, do not copy it word to word, do not copy it from sentence to sentence and explanation to explanation, because what I'm telling you is a specific kind of, it's for a specific kind of answer. This whole method that I taught you, it only works for a specific kind of answer where we're talking about 2 characters. Although I'm sure you'd be able to use it innovatively in several different kinds of questions, but it works best for when we're talking about characters because you can easily classify the traits of a character. Once we've classified the traits of a character, what do we do? Before we gave a background information, some kind of contextual information, and now what we're going to do, we're going to fight. Character 1 fight character 2. Now we're going to make them confront each other. Okay, now we're going to expound on why the traits and the qualities of character 1 were important, why they mattered, and how they affected character 2, and vice versa, how did the qualities and background of character 2 affected character 1, because we're talking about the relationship between these 2 people. One is father and another is son. You can also add in real life situations again here, that a father expects very obedience from his son, he expects respect from his son, or a father is generally very strict and he does not show much emotions, or something like whatever you can remember from your own father. I'm not going to go too much into depth because I don't want to remember too many things about my own father. Anyways, moving on here, then you can think things about how a real life son should be, and at the same time you can like mix up that information live with that. Like, let's say that a father expects his son to be obedient or this or that. Joe Keller also had similar expectations from his son, but his son was a kind of revolutionary. He had different ideas, different ideology from his father, and so he was not always obedient towards him. Then again, you can pick up a third point, that Joe Keller was materialistic. You can just literally pick up points from this back page. You can just pick up points from that page and make it confront with points from this one. It's just like a game. You're choosing weapons from this side and you're choosing weapons from this side, and then you're fighting each other here. Then you can add things like this what was his name, Joe Keller, I think. Yeah, Joe Keller was a materialistic. And now this is the main point. This is where you're going to add an information. This is where you're going to tell the examiner that you don't just know how to write an answer, you know even what to write in it. You have information enough to fill up that answer. You're not just like trying to make it look grand. It actually is grand. Like there are some things which look flashy from the outside and doesn't have anything from the inside. You're telling the examiner that's not how it is, that's not how my answer is. My answer is perfect, it's flashy, it's uh it's eye catching, it looks good from the outside, and it is essentially useful as well, so it has matter inside as well. And now you're going to add in things like Joe Keller was materialistic, and now you're going to answer the question why he was materialistic. Previously we didn't answer the whys. In this we didn't answer the whys, we just kind of satisfied half curiosity. But here we would tell you why. Joe Keller was materialistic, and he could go to any lengths to fulfill his life of a comfortable and American life, like that idolized American life, that capitalist life. And he could do anything to do that. And then now you explain that he sold cracked cylinders to the army, which led to the death of so many soldiers on the battlefield. And then now you can add he pinned uh, the fault on his friend Steve Deaver, and he pretended that he was sick and didn't go to the to the company, or called Steve Deaver. And so actually Steve Deaver was convicted in this case, even though Steve Deaver had done his part as a responsible person. He had called Joe Keller, he had told him about the cracks, but despite this, Joe Keller asked him to ship the cylinders anyway, and saying that he will take the blame himself and something like that. And at the last moment, he shifted all the blame to Steve Deaver, and got himself acquitted. And you can add in things like that. And then you can say, on the other hand, or in contrast to this, his son, Joe Keller, he feels guilty for having survived, for having been not acquitted. Like, you can make trying to mix these things up, that Joe Keller, he did dirty things, he did bad things to free himself, uh, to live a free life, to live a comfortable life. And on the other hand, Chris Keller is feeling guilty of living a free life, of living a comfortable life, because his companions died. So you can kind of show the contrast between these two. That Joe Keller got his own partner, his own friend convicted, and Chris, on the other hand, is guilty of not having died with his partners, with his comrades in arms in the war. So you can show the kind of difference that these two people have. And then again, you can write some background stories like, Chris never wanted this life. Chris always thought that his father's money was hard earned money, and he did a good and honest job. And so he was always proud of his father. He called him McGuts, something like that he called him, right? There was in the book. And his father, on the other hand, always knew that his money was blood money, and it was based on other people's sacrifices, other people's hard work, but he did it anyway. And now you can add in a few things as well, that this is the most important point for this, and I wrote it in my answer as well. This was the most important point. The most important point was family. Family, yes, family. Just like, what was that guy's name, that Baldy from Fast and Furious. Oh man, what was his name? So it's just like how Dom Toretto always says, family is first, family is the most important. So Chris believes, now this, I'm just telling you a point. You need to expound on it, you need to explain it in details by yourself. I'm just giving you a point. So Chris believes that the whole world is his family. Okay, that his comrades, that his yeah man, I can't remember that specific word. I have it in my mind and it's just not coming out. So he believes that the whole world is his family, whereas Joe Keller believes that only these four people were his family. Only his wife and his children are his family. This is the fundamental difference between Chris and Joe Keller, and why they disagree. But towards the end, we've already added so much matter. It easily covers 5 to 6 pages, but I'm just giving you more matter, I'm just giving you more content in case you forget some things or you don't remember some of the things, right? You can just pick up anything from, if there are so many choices. Now you can just expound on how Chris believed the whole world to his family, Joe believed only his wife and children to be to his family. But by the end of the novel, Joe realizes that in fact all those people who died, all those soldiers who died, were part of his family too. They died to protect his own country, which would have in turn protected his family as well. Even his limited, even his narrow family as well. So in turn, they were part of his family as well. They sacrificed themselves. They died to protect him, to give him a comfortable life, to give him a stable life. And he feels immensely guilty, and that is the reason why he shoots himself, because he feels too guilty to live anymore, too guilty to face the world. Add in a few dramatic lines and that just makes up the answer. Okay. We've already added so much content, we have written so much information into it. It will easily fill your 5 or 6 pages or 7 pages, even write 8 pages if you want. Because we're talking about points here, but when you actually start writing the material, the length becomes too much, and you add in a lot of words, so it becomes very long. So that's how you basically write an answer. In the end, why I said this point, why I said these points, that by the end of the novel, like starting with these specific words, by the end of the novel. So by the end of the novel, he feels guilty. He realizes what he had done was very wrong, and could not live with it anymore. And so he went inside. When you start writing these, I'm just telling you in brief, small pauses, but when you start writing these, they form big, complete sentences. So they cover a lot of page. They cover a lot of lines. He felt guilty and he shot himself. Okay, so this was your conclusion. This was your conclusion part. We talked about here how you write the main matter, and then in the end you write let us sum up, or the conclusion part. So this part basically is your conclusion, that he felt immensely guilty. This is not related to the father son relations. Okay, it is not directly related to the father son relation, but it still gives a certain end, a certain finale to the answer, because it provides a kind of finality to that answer, because it's still related to this, and it still has a slight bit of the topic within the content as well. Not completely, not directly, not exactly related to the question asked, but still very much in sync with the question, very much related to the question. And so you can end it with this, and it makes the reader feel like you've written a complete answer from start to the end, and you've explained a lot of things. You've even integrated it with real life, real world information, so you don't only understand the question, you have comprehended it. And comprehension is the main thing with anything. Okay, comprehension is the key to life. So this is how you would write your answer, and then it's finished, voila. And I don't know what else to add, but feel free, if you have any specific question in mind, if you have any specific doubt or problem or issue in mind, just write it up and I'll try to make a video on it if possible.